The luxury goods market has always been 100% about signaling one's wealth and status. People basically saying, look, I'm wearing the same quality product as you, but I have the flex to pay for this really expensive Italian tag that's sewn into my clearly Chinese-made product. The one upside to all the tariff nonsense is that we crossed a bright, beautiful red line when Chinese manufacturers stepped out of the shadows in the luxury goods market, because the entire market, like the bond market of old, like the entire US healthcare system, is built on the least trustworthy pricing model out there. Opaque pricing based on artificial scarcity, exclusive limited edition, late stage capitalism. Ooh. Welcome to week 3, sales week, day 18 of starting your side hustle. We're taking 28 days, 28 small steps to build a business that's meaningful, impactful, and affordable. And today's topic, the fourth skill of the trust builder mindset, transparency. But like every day this week, we're going to go off format before we talk about how to sell, before we jump into the mindset of radical transparency, before we talk about owning your process, sharing your wins and losses, before we talk about you showing your receipts to your client. Before all that, let's talk about what it actually means to get your content right before you pitch a single sale. Because if your content isn't built on honesty and openness from the start, your sales conversations will always feel forced. In 2025, people don't buy products or services. They buy trust. And trust is built out in the open. So, how do you make sure your content is ready for real sales conversations? Yes, you should be posting regularly. And yes, you should be following the content calendar we built last week. And you should be making sure every piece of content, every post, every story, every video reflects who you are and what you stand for. Hopefully, framing your client as the hero of the story. Yes, given our theme later today, your content is about making your process visible, your thinking transparent, your values unmistakable. So our content has to be empathetic before we are. It has to listen before we do. It has to be curious before we are. And today, it has to be transparent before we are. So here are 3 exercises to help you get your content right before you move to sales conversation. All 3 exercises build on everything we've learned so far: empathy, active listening, curiosity. Exercise 1, what I call the receipts audit. Review your last 5 pieces of content, and for each one ask, did I show my work? Did I reveal any part of my process, my success, my failures, my uncertainty? Because that's important. Did I explain why I made a certain decision or tried a certain approach? Did I invite my audience to see behind the curtain, or did I only show the polished result? Pick one post, rewrite it to include a receipt, a screenshot, a note, a reflection, a lesson learned from your process. And then track engagement on the revised post. Did people comment? Did they DM? Did they ask questions about your process? Did it spark a different kind of conversation? Exercise 2, the why not exercise. Take a topic or decision you've been avoiding in your content, something you're afraid to talk about because it's messy, controversial, just plain uncomfortable, and create a short post where you explain why you're not doing that thing and why you're hesitant to try it. Invite your audience to help you think through it, to share their own experiences, to give you some earnest advice, and then use the responses to guide your next steps, content-wise, product-wise, process-wise. And then the cherry on top, consider sharing what you learned in a follow-up post. Shampoo, rinse, repeat. It's that simple. Exercise 3, what I call the transparency timeline. Create a simple timeline of your side hustle journey so far, or key moments, decisions, pivots, wins, mistakes, and write a sentence or 2 about each one. Don't use AI, be authentic, reflect on how it feels, or if you can't help yourself and you use AI, ask it to be authentic. Ask it to guess at how it feels. And then share your timeline in a post. Invite your audience to share their milestones. Am I doing that in this series? Yes, I am. And you do it too, absolutely. Be a great artist. Steal to your heart's content. These kinds of exercises matter because transparency, our sales training for today, our trust builder mindset training, is about making your audience feel like they're a part of your journey. When your content invites people in, when it shows your receipts, your failures, your doubts, and your wins, you're building a foundation of trust that makes every sale conversation easier. You're inviting people to join a story they believe in. Remember, one of the most powerful sales tools you have is your willingness to be open, to show your work, to invite your audience along for the ride. Okay, let's get back to our usual format and dig deeper into the trust builder mindset. In a world where every 12-year-old is more sophisticated than the marketing that easily scams their nana and their pop-pop, the healthiest and tragically the least common way to stand out as a founder, as a salesperson, as an operating model, is to show your receipts openly, unapologetically, and before anyone asks. That's transparency. That's probably my least popular opinion when it comes to sales. I am 100% convinced that the best way to handle your client cost discussions, unflinching transparency. Don't hide the messy parts of your process. Invite the client to look behind the curtain, see exactly how things work, exactly how much it costs you to produce your product, to offer it, to see exactly how much you need to make the hustle worth your time. The client you want will respect that. So today's questions are: 1, where in your sales process are you tempted to overpromise, to hide a limitation, to gloss over the messy details? This question matters because, and I risk sounding like a total boomer, trust is built on honesty. The urge to hide flaws or exaggerate capabilities is natural, but it's also the fastest way to erode your credibility. When you're transparent about what you can and can't do, you've already differentiated from 95% of salespeople, because that 95% of salespeople keep selling features their company doesn't have. I lived through it in the last 5 companies I worked at. When you're transparent about what you can and can't do, you set clear expectations, you reduce anxiety internally and externally, and you invite your clients to trust you even when things go sideways. All the research shows that unflinching transparency is more and more a baseline expectation in every industry, not a nice to have, a baseline expectation, and customers rewarded with loyalty and referrals. Question 2. How can you proactively communicate your strengths and limitations to your next prospect or partner? This one matters because proactive, unflinching transparency has zero to do with damage control. It's 100% a competitive advantage. By openly sharing how you operate, what you value, where you draw the line, you differentiate yourself from competitors who hide behind jargon and vague promises. This kind of clarity prevents misunderstandings. In my experience, it attracts clients who have been burnt in the past, which is about 100% of clients. Okay, take a moment and try to answer day 18's questions for your hustle without AI. And before you listen to the next section, 28-day Ivy-League MBA. I personally think it's useful to try to answer questions without AI first, but if you try to do that, the AI teaching assistant prompt will drop with today's case study in a couple hours. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out Lunch Break Millionaire Day 0, or go over to superserious.com where I'm posting daily transcripts. The AI prompts are there too. That's it. Hustle smarter. There is no Ivy League professor that I'm aware of that's teaching the idea of a mindset rooted in unflinching transparency. Not those specific words. Those 2 words are mine. In the Ivy League, at places like Harvard Business School and Wharton, they call that mindset something way more scary. They call it open communication. They call it accountability. And the scariest one of all, they call it ethical leadership, the metaphorical beating heart of the Ivy League's teachings on leadership and organizational behavior. So they might not use my words, but unflinching transparency is definitely framed as a strategic necessity for building trust, for building resilience, for building long-term business value, and maybe the most important, for building a business that actively changes the world for the better. So how do the Ivy League MBA programs teach their version of what I call unflinching transparency? Let's go through it because I think it'll help you. 1, they stress open communication. It's a skill. Students are trained to communicate decisions, risks, and setbacks as openly as they share wins. For you, this means saying what you'll do, sharing why, and delivering on your word. Then explaining candidly and with kindness when things don't go as planned. 2, They stress stakeholder engagement, something you can learn. Two fancy words, stakeholder engagement, that really just mean be honest with your client. Invite their feedback. Treat that feedback as a gift. And always, always, always share your reasoning behind your decisions. Demonstrate that governance isn't a black box. You're open to feedback, open to change. What else? They stress visible processes, whether it's pricing, which I think we're going to talk about again next week, whether it's pricing, supply chain, product limitations, the important stuff. MBA students are encouraged to make the how as clear as the what. It's a muscle you should flex. Use companies like Buffer or Patagonia as your inspiration and openly share everything. Your salaries, your supply chain practices, your mistakes. It's you setting a new standard for unflinching transparency in business. Maybe one more. Use transparency tools. The biggest one right now, I'd argue, is social media itself. Not sure they're teaching that level of, crazy in the Ivies, but they are teaching the importance internally of using dashboards, feedback systems, just regular updates to make unflinching transparency actionable. These kinds of tools help everyone stay accountable. They ensure that openness becomes a daily practice. The whole point here is that transparency builds trust. Why? It reduces information asymmetry, two fancy words that just mean, everyone's looking at the same numbers, which necessarily makes clients feel like partners. What else? It mitigates misunderstandings. It accelerates problem resolution. It increases loyalty. It differentiates you from your competitors who want the world to think that they're don't stink. Have a tough conversation. That's my ask. Have the tough conversation. Okay, transparency is about showing up authentically in your sales process. If you've had prospects reach out because of your social media posts or content from last week, lean into that openness. Invite them to a Zoom to discuss how you can help, how you can be clear about what you offer and what you don't. This kind of honest, direct approach builds trust. It sets you apart. If you're not seeing many people reaching out, let transparency guide you back to week 1 and week 2, where you did the work on this stuff. Ask yourself if your value proposition, your problem validation, are these clear and compelling? Refine your messaging and content until you attract genuine interest. Remember, trust is built when people come to you because they see value and honesty. It's that simple. That's how you hustle smarter. Here's my impossible dream for my grandkids, the ones I don't yet have. Someday, we'll walk into stores that sell anything: groceries, clothes, healthcare, drugs, electronics. And next to each price will be a breakdown of how much that store paid for the product, how much above that is going to pay down the store's expenses like salaries and rent, and how much profit they expect to make from that specific sale. And you know who will look at those tags obsessively? No one. And yet, we'll all feel a little less like we're lambs being taken to slaughter. We'll feel more trusting of that store, of that entire society. My point is that you don't need to look at a company's charitable givings to figure out if their values and principles align with yours. You don't need to look at their internal culture. Just look at how transparent they are with their pricing. Because being fair and efficient and accountable and client obsessed starts with you not treating everyone like they're mindless consumers, little sock puppets. This is day 18, part 3, Lunch Break Millionaire. This is the segment where we #build in public, where I answer the daily questions every hustle should, using the MBA skills we just picked up and showing my work, sharing how I'm building my hustle from scratch, no filters, just the real journey. You don't need to actually like or subscribe. I'm not doing this for the clicks, but if you're leveling up from other creators you follow or know, introduce us. I want to learn from them and help them level up too. We all deserve better than just making rich people richer. Okay, let's run with an idea that I really believe in, that trust is the foundation of literally everything good in business. If I'm right, when people don't know how much your product or service really costs you, they can and should assume the worst. Customers should absolutely believe that they're being ripped off. But if you just lay your cards on the table, if you show everyone exactly where every dollar goes, suddenly people start to trust you, and with good reason. They see that you're not hiding anything, that you're playing fair, that you expect to make a fair profit for your hard work, which no one who trusts you would begrudge you. In fact, when people trust you, they buy more. They give your missteps the benefit of the doubt. They stick around longer. It's not rocket science, but somehow most businesses act like it is. Okay, let me get off my high horse and share how today's exercise improved my hustle. Question 1 was, where am I tempted to overpromise or hide the messy parts? My answer is that right this second, my company is me flying solo. If I want another feature in the mobile app, I can definitely deliver it, but right now I'm not scalable. And to get scalable, I need to hire more engineers, which will raise the price of my services because they'll now be our services. When I'm talking to creators, it's tempting to gloss over the limitation of my platform, which are mostly the limitations of being a one-person show. Would I like more and better integrations with certain social networks? Absolutely. Do I want to offer better analytics? Hell yeah. A younger me might have waited for someone to ask before admitting these gaps. Now, I lead with them. Here's where I'm strong. Here's what's still a work in progress. If you need X, I'll be honest, I'm not there yet, but here's the roadmap. And then I'll actually post regularly about progress on that roadmap with that person who asked. That's transparency. It leads to better communication. It leads to better conversations, more realistic expectations, a few prospects who I'm sure will come back in a couple of months. Maybe not because they trust my honesty, but because they want to. I know that's weird. Question 2 was, how do I proactively communicate strengths and limitations? You're kind of watching it. If I hit a snag, you'll see the video of me from me first. That's the power of hashtag build in public. His level of openness will turn skeptics into people who root for you because they know you're not hiding anything. It'll lead to more referrals as creators tell their peers, as your customers tell their friends and family. They're going to say, hey, you can trust this guy. He'll tell you the truth, even if it's not pretty. I'm not sure you can answer either of today's questions and not exercise the muscle that is our MBA skill, ethical leadership. I think the result of making transparency your default will be deeper relationships, much less churn. And once you have a team, a culture where everyone, employees and partners and clients, everyone feels safe to be honest. I mean, really, when was the last time you heard someone suggest honesty as their strategic differentiator? My key takeaway for today: you can't sell without trust, and transparency, when practiced unapologetically, proactively, is a solid foundation to trust. The absolute fastest way to build loyalty, the absolute best insurance policy against misunderstanding. So, show your receipts unapologetically.